So what happens when you're lucky like me and you get your hands on some free rusty metal from a neighbor who's moved out up the street? Well, you got to remove the rust, and clearly I do not have access to a sandblaster down at my parents' house, so I figured why not use this as a great opportunity to investigate using acids. In this case we have some Naval Jelly, and in this case we have some muriatic acid, and do a side-by-side comparison of the two and see how well they work. So let's find out. So clearly there are much faster ways to remove rust. We've already shown that with my good buddy Jimmy Shaw from Jimmy Shaw's Tidbits. We literally blasted mill scale and rust and stuff off steel in another video like that. Using an acid is definitely a much slower mechanism, but it might be more convenient for some people. In this case, this steel has been sitting out for who knows how long. I'm not trying to get rid of every single bit of rust. I just want to get rid of the rust that rubs off on my gloves or rub off on stuff in the car. It's probably going to rust up a bit back up in San Francisco, but I want to try and get off as much of the surface crap as I can, so that's where I'm taking this from. So for this side, which will be the right side on camera, we're going to be using this Naval Jelly stuff to see what it does in comparison, and on this side we're going to be using muriatic acid, also known as hydrochloric acid, to remove the rust. And before we go any further, both of these are extremely dangerous if they get on your skin. You breathe in a large amount, especially if they get in your eyeballs, so that's why I'm wearing safety glasses, and I'm wearing nitrile gloves. So if you're going to do this, use extreme caution, and definitely wear your appropriate safety equipment. So we're going to get started by just spraying this stuff down on these guys. And my dad keeps swearing that Naval Jelly is going to do absolutely nothing for the surface rust, and the hydrochloric is going to take a while, but you know what? I did science fairs a lot as a kid, and I like doing side-by-side comparisons, so that's what we're doing. Let me just see if I can more effectively dump it. There we go. Just dump that on there. Not get it on the camera. And dump that on there. So I think I'm going to go run and get myself a paintbrush really fast, and I'll be back. We'll leave that guy there so we know that's phosphoric. Perfect. Now we have all of these guys coated down in phosphoric. We can now move over to this side and deal with the muriatic. Now, one interesting thing you will note is that the Naval Jelly is more literally like a jelly, and the hydrochloric is literally very runny like water. So you definitely have to reapply the hydrochloric a lot more often, and also the hydrochloric smells way worse from the chlorine being emitted. So, I mean, I'm out here on a breezy day with the wind blowing away from me, and if I lean my head too far into this box, I get a nice whiff of chlorine. It's definitely not pool chlorine strength, it's strong chlorine strength. Oh, I'm like having to hold my breath every time I stick my head over the box. Okay, so before I probably die of fume inhalation, I have covered all these guys on the left with hydrochloric or muriatic acid. So I'm going to keep the jug there. And oh man, that is strong. Okay, I had to move because I was literally getting choked out by the fumes. On the left side here, we have the muriatic acid, on the right side here we have the phosphoric acid, and it's really hard to say immediately if there is a difference, but I will say it looks like on the hydrochloric parts, and I'll see if I can show you, there are some areas where already I'm seeing what might be, but I'm not saying for sure. Steel may be coming through, and the phosphoric's been sitting a lot longer, and it might also be beginning to show through, but I'm not fully sure. I'm not sure what the condition of these parts were before they sat out for however long at my neighbor's house and before I got my hands on them. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to let both of these guys sit for a while. Before I leave, I'm probably just going to slap some more on there, as it's about 85 degrees outside right now at my parents' house, and I want to make sure that this stuff doesn't all evaporate before it has had time to eat the rust. Okay, so it's been approximately 30 minutes since I was last out here. About 15 minutes ago I came on out and I recoated everything with their appropriate rust removers. The reason why is because it is so hot, it just keeps sucking all the stuff off, especially the hydrochloric. That just keeps drying off very quickly, and with the phosphoric it would kind of drip down the side, so I'd kind of rotate it and go from there. That said though, you can see on the phosphoric piece where there is a little bit of presumably steel coming through, but the rest of it doesn't look very impressive. I mean, there are spots that were probably not as bad as others, or maybe just the way it was rotated, but definitely not that big of a difference. Now we come on over to the hydrochloric side, and oh wow, big difference. Now mind you, none of these parts have been rinsed off. I'm going to go get my safety glasses before we do that, but you can tell that there's definitely a marked difference between how the hydrochloric acid pieces were etched and removed of rust, and the phosphoric pieces not so much. So my conclusion at this point for rinsing is definitely what my dad says. Hydrochloric is way faster, and phosphoric acid probably has its place for very light surface rust and stuff, but stuff just takes so long. It's kind of inefficient. So I can see though where there might be applications where this would be better, as the fumes from this can definitely rust other things around. Probably the fumes from this not so much, and also this, I was not joking when I was gagging on the fumes. They are that strong when you're applying it. It is definitely not child's play. Neither of them are child's play to deal with, but the hydrochloric is definitely way nastier stuff, which is why it removes the rust so much faster. So let me work on dragging this on over to some water, and we'll catch back up. Okay, so the results are in. Mind you, the parts are still a little bit wet, but this is a hydrochloric part, and you might or might not be able to tell, but a fair bit of the surface rust is gone. Now there might be a little bit of surface rust forming just from the moisture sitting on the parts and evaporating. For me, it's not that giant of a deal. I also just wanted to get an idea of how good or bad the base steel was. And also fresh steel oxidizes like that, so it's something to keep in mind. Now this is the phosphoric in comparison, and it ate some rust, but it's definitely not as chomped through, shall we say, as the hydrochloric. The hydrochloric one's definitely a bit smoother, and you can definitely feel the roughness on the phosphoric one. Also, there's still surface crap that you can easily scrub off the phosphoric one that you can't on the hydrochloric. Now in my case, I just don't feel like going back and hydrochloricing these guys and all that stuff, so for me, it's not worth it. So I guess in conclusion, if you need to get things done fast, which is what I was trying to do in this video, hydrochloric is the way to go, and phosphoric might have its place, but quite honestly, unless it's like minor surface rust, stuff ain't gonna do squat, it seems like. So cost rundown wise, I'll have some overlays on the screen, but I can definitely tell you that both of the chemicals for this, I'm 99% sure, are both free. So, you know, but if I had to choose, I'd probably go hydrochloric, even though you should note that the fumes generated just from the container sitting are strong enough to rust any metal items in the vicinity. This has happened to my dad, who stores his in a shed and had a metal can nearby, and it literally just rusted the whole outside of the can from the fumes. So if you are going to use hydrochloric and you're going to store it, put it somewhere that's very well ventilated, and try and keep the area dry as well, so that way the fumes can't build up and condense on things and rust them. Probably with phosphoric it's not as bad, even though I know it will fume off a little bit. It's probably not going to be as nasty as hydrochloric. This was literally a last second, oh right, I need to go get the rust off the part. So that's the reason why it was pretty much another case of grab the camera and film something really fast. But I hope you guys actually found this useful and enjoyable. I got some steel to dry off. Oh, that hurt. Oh, nothing like kneeling on dirt with bad knees. So enjoyable.